Well, Minister, thanks for joining me. You've called this commission of inquiry into the child protection system and into residential care. Can you tell me why have you called this inquiry?
Well, Jack, what I uncovered in the first 6 months of coming into the portfolio left me no choice but to recommend to government the commission of inquiry. There's just harrowing cases, cases of children who have attempted suicide in care because of their mental health, because they're not getting the support that they need. Stories of sexual abuse and sexual assault. So the sheer system itself that's created to protect children, I fear in many cases has failed those children, and I want to get to the bottom of why. More broadly, the residential care system as well is costing taxpayers $1.12 billion a year, and I would suggest after my first 8 months now in government that it's not delivering the outcomes that we expect it should for that value for money and for protecting our most vulnerable children.
Can you guarantee children currently in the residential care system will be able to share their stories during this inquiry?
We will be certainly encouraging young people, children in residential care and in the system, those past and present, to be able to contribute to the inquiry, as I will be encouraging foster and kinship carers as well, who've had those experiences with the department and with children in care.
Your department has to follow certain laws. Sometimes it can make the department look a bit secretive from time to time. Can you guarantee your department won't silence children from telling their stories?
We certainly operate in an intense and highly regulated set of legislative rules. However, I certainly am encouraging children who are in care, as well as my department, to be open and frank.
You were the Shadow Minister for 4 years before you took up the role as Minister. Do you think your department is secretive?
I think it is a complex environment in which the department operates. I certainly have observed over the last 4 years and now as Minister that there are pockets, I believe, across the state and across potentially the department and potentially the sector where there are things that need to be uncovered. One of those areas was in the residential care system, and in particular where we're seeing for-profit providers profit significantly on the back of vulnerable children.
You've spoken to some of the children in the system, haven't you?
I have.
And have you been shocked by the stories that you've heard?
I have. There was one young man in Cairns that I have spoken to who'd experienced since the age of 2 over 35 placements as a child. He felt that there was nobody left to care for him, that the system had failed him, and the revolving door of child safety officers that he had engaged with, he felt failed by. He was a child who turned to the justice system. He was a child who was caught up in youth crime. And his story was one that's tragic and I truly believe is preventable with the change that we need to bring about.
35 placements.
35 placements.
How does that happen?
Sadly, Jack, that has happened more times than I think is warranted. I receive briefs and case notes on children every day in the system. And some of the places that we're seeing that children have experienced is been driven by cost and not been driven by what's in the best interest of the child. Children being moved from pillar to post in excess of 30 placements delivers nothing but trauma for that child. And then we wonder as a society why we have children messed up in the justice system.
Between December 2015 and December 2024, the number of children in residential care increased from 650 to more than 2,100. Do you ultimately want to see that number fall?
I absolutely do. Residential care was designed as a last resort for young adolescent children, so teenagers who couldn't be placed in foster and kinship care. And it was designed for just a small period of time as a crisis response. We're now seeing that residential care is almost become the preferred and the only alternative for young people. What's so shocking about those figures is an increase in children under 12 in the residential care system. I've visited residential care facilities where we have babies in care.
Babies?
babies
What-
are
I mean-
in residential care.
What type of care do they get when they're in residential?
They have 24/7 support, so they would be carers that are around the clock. I've met those carers, but it doesn't replace, you've got someone, putting a child to sleep and a different person waking that child up. That is not the same as being in family-based care. And we don't truly know the damage that that can do to a young child, particularly in their development years and through the period where they need to attach, and feel love and feel secure in a family. So what we've seen grow over the last several years, to me, is unacceptable.
So the focus you want to be on foster care, kinship care, less kids in resi care.
Absolutely.
The Commission of Inquiry will report back in November next year. Why is this inquiry taking so long?
The system is so big. Jack, what I've also asked for the Commissioner is to provide interim reports so that we can be reforming as the Commission uncovers those failings, and particularly if there is a system failure, that we can adjust that system. But I've also asked the Commission to look at any legislative reform that's critical to modernise our child safety system and ensure that it is fit for purpose.
Are there currently any minimum standards for residential care?
In part, so there are regulated licensed providers that operate. But sadly, what we saw under the previous Labor government is a growth in the unregulated and unlicensed operators. They account for $766 million per annum in costs and rising. They're not licensed. They don't have to adhere to the same quality framework that licensed providers, which are not-for-profit providers, have to. Those that are cowboys across the sector, the Commission certainly will uncover that.
What about an independent complaints process? Do you remain committed to that?
I absolutely am committed to that. That was the number one issue that I heard in my 4 years as the Shadow Minister, was that the current complaints process is not independent. The department investigates itself, and that to me is unacceptable.
Will you accept all of the recommendations from the inquiry?
The inquiry will hand down its recommendations next November. We've made a commitment that we will report on them the following year in line with the year's budget. I anticipate that the recommendations will be vast, will be wholesome and fulsome, but I also anticipate they will come at a cost as well, and an investment that we will need to make and we will need to consider carefully.
You are stopping short, though, committing to accepting all those recommendations before the inquiry.
Well, Jack, because I want to see what those recommendations are, and I want to make sure that as a government, we have the budget, we have the commitment from my Cabinet colleagues to be able to deliver upon all those recommendations.
There's been so many reviews, inquiries over the years. Why will this one be different, and why can Queenslanders have confidence that this one will be different?
Previous inquiries, not all recommendations were implemented by previous governments. And what we've seen grown over the last 5 years is a multi-billion-dollar industry on the back of our most vulnerable children, and children that have been led down a path to a youth crime crisis instead of a full and wholesome life. We have to have this inquiry, and we need to heed the recommendations of this inquiry once the findings are made.
Minister, thank you.
Thank you.